say this every time we do an interview. You guys are in for a treat, but you really, truly are this time with Jim and Jamie. And these guys, so tell us, just I want to give you guys an official introduction and a bio, but before that, like, this is the connection series. The purpose of it is to help families be connected. And so let's just jump right in. Like, what is something, if you guys could give one piece of advice, both of you, to help families be more connected, whether that's something you do with your family or just something you've seen over there, like, what's something that you would share that would have a family be more connected? That's simple.
Do you want me to go first?
You go first. Ladies first.
Okay. So what I was going to say is something that I try to say yes more than I say no with my children, with all of them. So right now we have 6. We have our 4 children and we have 2 fosters with us currently. And I try to always have my yes on the table, even if it's a slightly inconvenient, unless it's a hard no. I try to say yes. Yes to the mess. Yes to the, the extra exploration. Yes to the, Mom, I'm thinking of starting this business that I dreamt about last night, or yes to, can we have dessert before dinner? Whatever it may be, I really like to say yes, because one, stretches me slightly out of my comfort zone, which helps me grow. But then it also shows the kids, like, we don't have to take ourselves so seriously.
Love that.
Fun,
And by the way, when you guys see me looking down, those of you watching on these lives, I feel like I'm taking notes, because I seriously, like, every guest we interview, my wife's like loves it and hates it, because I'm like, hey, I got new stuff for us to try as a family.
I usually take notes too, so thank you for saying that, because I don't want you to think I'm being a jerk.
And so I love that idea. Now, Jamie, was that something that, like, just always came natural to you and it was easy to say yes, or is it a muscle and an intention you've had of, like, okay, lighten up a little bit, be willing to say yes more? Because I know for me, like, if I'm being completely honest, there's a lot of times, like, I don't want my kids to come help in the kitchen. I mean, I do and I don't, because it's like, it's going to take longer. It's going to be way messier. It's going to just be more complicated. And so I do think for me, it's this intention of just like not being so serious. Like you said, say yes more.
Yeah. You have to think about it. It's definitely something that you have to put into your bag. I think that for me, it's harder for me to say no than it is for me to say yes. I tell Jim all the time, like, you have to remember, I'm a child. He's a child as far as maturity goes, and maybe even some, like, repetitive jokes that he tells. But for me, like, I love making messes. Like, I'll get into something and then be at the end of it and be like, oh shit, I just made a really big mess. And I don't necessarily, our front porch right now is a disaster from this, like, cross testing slime 4 ingredient
we were on a large media call that she was on mute on. I was in the upstairs room.
I'm talking to our media
come
group.
Down and I opened the front door and all the kids are covered in flour.
He actually slammed the door real quick because he was afraid we were going to throw something at him.
I was like, what the hell is going on? And I was like, you were on that whole media call and this was going on around you? She would only chime in a little bit, but I'm like, there's no way I could have even pretended. Awesome. Yeah, so that was.
So I think my yes is easier than my no. And oftentimes it gets, I don't want to say it gets me in trouble, but I was a little bit like, sorry, our porch is so gross. Well, eventually, like,
took a few days to
the flour and cornstarch will, like, get off of the porch.
That's awesome. I love that, though. That's so something to have families be more connected is just be willing to say yes, right? Like, that's cool.
Let the kids stretch you a little bit.
And Jamie's taught me that, where I'll be a daredevil with myself, but I am more definitely protective over the kids of them getting hurt. Like, I'll be more the one, if they get hurt, and she's more relaxed.
Yeah.
So,
every ER visit happens on my watch.
She reminds me, hey, it's not like they're going outside our core values.
Take notes too.
They're asking to make a mess. They're not asking to do something,
totally
necessarily, towards, like, the path of, like, hey, Mom, or 14-year-old, can we drink a bunch of beers in the backyard? Well, no, she's not gonna. Hey, can we form a parachute out off of this giant canvas and jump off the beach dune and parachute down? Yeah, go ahead and try that. The sand is soft.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, whoa. So, but within core values, she's taught me to say yes more and say, look, once in a while there'll be Band-Aids, once in a while there'll be stitches, and but you can't pat them in bubble wrap. That's sure.
That's awesome.
And if you let them get addicted to things like those experiences that might be a little bit messy, then they tend to not get addicted to other things. Like we were talking earlier, drugs, alcohol, sex, things that aren't as good for them. They get to feel like they're being a little bit maybe rebellious with some of the other yeses that we do.
Yeses that are, like, healthy and fun and not, like, long-term consequences.
They're, like,
I love that.
Slightly dangerous, but like you said, still within your core values.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like, So, well, first of all, if you're watching this, again, we're here live with Jim and Jamie, and amazing founders of 18 Summers, which we're going to talk about. And if you're watching this as part of the Connection series, I invite you guys to start a watch party. Like, go live on your page, share this, because we want to reach as many families as possible. And already, like, an amazing nugget around, like, that's incredible. Like, I love these simple concepts that are like, wow, yeah, like that's actually really simple and really profound. What if I just said yes more? Or just looked for a way to say yes to my kids more and yes to more possibility. And I love this idea of today. We're going to talk about mission, vision, values, because that's a huge part of family brand. I love this idea, though, that like the values create these like walls, like healthy, boundaries and walls, and create space. But it's like within that space, anything's possible. Like within that space.
We call it, Chris, we've always called it when we do like our retreats or workshops, we call it the spaghetti strainer. I said, look, the values are our spaghetti strainer. It goes through that, and what shouldn't be there leaks out. But it's our values are either the walls or a spaghetti strainer. You get to keep good stuff, and that's it's drains out what shouldn't stay in and keeps in what should.
That's awesome. Well, talk to us about talk to us about your commitment to families and the work you guys do with families. I mean, you're amazing, and you guys have been doing this for a long time. Talk to us about kind of the idea behind 18 Summers and all the work you do to support families and what that's about.
I think it just started with us first being really passionate about our own families. I have a background in Waldorf and Montessori education and alternative education in general. And with Jim's entrepreneurial experience and education in his field, when we became a family, a blended family, we really just utilized and harnessed kind of what I knew about child development, what he knew about entrepreneurial education, like really turned it into this deep passion for creating our own bonded family, but finding along the way, like, oh, this works.
Yeah.
And wanting to share it with others.
I think it comes out of a need of your
Absolutely.
own. So, when Jamie and I got together a decade ago, we fell in love instantly, and she was divorced out of a really bad situation. I'm so proud. She stood up, got out of it, got full custody of, two young boys that the boys and I hit us off famously, but all of a sudden here it was, and they've, since asked me to adopt them. But when you come into a situation like that, here I am running a business that's come back from the dead after 2008. And, I wanted to make sure I was there for these boys, and it was in my own need of wanting to be the best I could that I started to research and find things. And there's always a catalyst, that happens, I think. And for what I wanted to be able to support these boys. And Jamie had such a good thing with the Montessori and Waldorf, and I had a personal development background. We just morphed it, and it came into these quality time coupons. And I just started to spend time individually with each of these boys, and the breakthroughs. I'd say the biggest thing, coming together, through what Jamie had come through, and these boys were just such great kids, regardless of past, things. And our oldest son, though, the evolution that he made in the first year was staggering, and I talk about this story. I actually was on stage for the first time I said it, and I cried in like 500 people, Alden, he was a terrible student, close to failing. He was put on the spectrum for autism and suffered every night from night terrors. Wow. And with a year, all that changed. And it was, we went
from the consistency and the quality time.
The most improved student. They retracted the diagnosis of autism. Night terrors were gone. And this came from just some simple deposits we were making, and we got those results. And there's a time and a place for therapy and for medication, but that's not what got these results.
And a lot of times that's not what's needed. So many of our children in today's society, especially now, probably exceptionally with the pandemic, our children have experienced trauma, right? So things have changed quickly, or things have become unpredictable. Even if you have a home, even if there's both parents in the home, sometimes if there's this high level of stress or a lack of income, that suddenly happens, or any type of fear or domestic violence, so often children are exhibiting PTSD. Even, can you believe, like sometimes even too much electronics, like an excessive amount of it can cause PTSD. And so we're just seeing so many children that need, and essentially that's what my children were suffering from as well. They had these traumatic experiences, and they needed the consistent deposits of quality time. They needed to know that they were safe. They needed to know what to expect. They needed to know some of those boundaries and islands of consistency. And we found what my children needed, what our children needed, everybody's children need.
Yeah, totally. So I love this idea of, like, you guys have heard the quote, children spell love, Time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And not just time, like quality time. Cause I can take my kid on a one-on-one date and be on my phone the whole time. Yeah. Right. Or I can take my kid on a one-on-one date and like really be present with them. And so I love this idea of these deposits. And so you saw this, Jim, with your oldest son. And is that the thing that kind of woke you up to like, wow, like we should share this with way more families and like that. And then the 18 Summers was kind of born out of that.
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, all these things come together where it wasn't planned and the organic growth
right.
took off. And it was right before I met Jamie. I mean, when I was 18, I looked like I was 11. You know, I had that young look to me. And
same here.
Say, okay, so you were the same, you know. And I got invited back to entrepreneur and personal development events at a young age. So I looked young, and I was at an age between the kids and the people attending, really. And I all of a sudden was becoming this intermediary negotiator. Oh, I wish my son was here. My parents dragged me here. And that's how our retreats almost started. And Jamie and I met at that time. So I was already kind of playing the fun uncle for entrepreneur families. And then all of a sudden I fall in love with, you know, the exact girl I'd been looking for. And then the boys came in, and it was like, okay, I'm going to keep this going because I need to learn. I don't have all the answers. I want this to work. And it was kind of, again, my own needs that brought this about, this curiosity, this commitment to family life. You know, and I think that's two key words for us, Chris: curiosity and commitment. We're really curious about, you know, how do we make the most of the time we have? That's why we named it 18 Summers. And doing that math, I mean, we have 2 more kids since now, and I do that math. You know, I got Alden and Leland at 7 and 5. So doing that 18 Summers, you know, I'm sure you've heard the quote, the average person will spend 85% of the quality time they ever have with their children by the end of the 18th summer. And so it means, man, I'm already down to 11. Like, it gave me a positive motivation to make the most, because, you know, the years are not the same of my opportunity to connect.
Totally. Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. You know, one of the things that, what I hear in that too, and there's a word that we use a lot within Family Brand, and it's this idea of intentional. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, with Family Brand, like, you know, kind of the core mission is we believe that every family, like, they can, or if you're watching this, like, you can define what it is your family stands for. Like, you can be the one that decides and declares what your family is going to be known for.
Exactly.
Like, and you can do it by design rather than by default. And I think one of the things that's kind of a misconception, I've heard companies say this a lot in my work with Campfire Effect, is that, like, I'll go into a company and they'll be like, well, the problem is we just don't have a culture. Or the problem here is we don't have values. And I'm always like, no, you have a culture and you have values. They're either just like, it's either by default or it's been done by design and intention. And so every home, same thing, is every home already has a culture in it. It's impossible for a home not to have a culture in it. It's impossible for a home not to have values. It's just which values and have they been intentionally created and intentionally designed. And I just love how intentional you guys are with that. It's like, man, we've got 18 summers. Like, let's be as intentional as possible with the time that we have, you know, with our kids. And so, with that said, like, how have you guys shaped kind of your values as a family? And like we talked at the beginning, right? Like the values are like the spaghetti strainer, right? How did you guys come up with and start to think about like the boundaries of like what it means to be in this family?
So we do an active work that we do with a lot of families is a core values discovery exercise. And so we just, and we started it, you know, organically with our own family, just looking and saying, okay, so what are some things that we hold near and dear for us? You know, things like adventure, service and contribution, humor, this guy. So there's things that so there's, I didn't say you're funny. I said humor.
It's a value
of work.
It's something he values.
We're always
I'm funny until about age 7 to 8. Then the teens are like, oh, dad jokes.
He's really good at the dad jokes. So, you know, we just kind of, we did our first one with just the 2 boys when they were probably 7 and 9. and using a list of words, because it's always easier, than just trying to sit there and think, but kind of taking a list of words and saying, okay, which ones resonate, which ones don't, letting everyone in the family throw in. They actually have great cards on Amazon. You can get core values cards that have the words on them. And so it's
cool.
kind of like a fun game you could play and be like, okay, put it, we've done it with other families where we'll say a word and if you raise your hand, then the card gets kept. If no one raises their hand, then the card goes. And that's kind of like a fun game to play. And what's neat too is that sometimes a word will come up and it'll mean something to you, but it's different for someone else.
Sure.
Like the word mastery. We did this with our Uncle Chris Plow one time, and he did a family values exercise with us because he's Uncle Chris. And he really, really hung to that word mastery. And to me, it meant like perfection and being great at everything. And Tim, it meant craftsmanship and doing a good job. And so it's such a great, and I know I'm digressing a little bit, but it's such a great way when you start this core values talk to really get into like knowing what that means for each person in your family. So if I would have just been like, all right, we're adding mastery to the thing, and I would have been like, oh, God, I have to be perfect all the time now? That'd be terrible. Whereas, once Chris said it, I'm like, okay, like craftsmanship. Okay, I got that. So anyways, it's a great conversation starter, but we went from that. So we just do it as a family, and then we agree, and then we can gather words that seem similar. So like service and contribution are kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And so we can go on from that. And then what's great is when everybody's at the same table and agreeing on it, you can say, we created this together. So look here, we said that we're drug and alcohol free. You said that. We all said that. So here it goes. We said that we like adventure. Hey, Mom, no, we don't. We want to jump off of this bridge because look, it's deep enough. There's nothing sharp to cut ourselves on. And look, our core value says adventure. Let's do it. And so it can be used both ways.
Yeah.
Children can use it as a protection against you, and you can use it for them. So it's just making sure, and then like Jim said, then everything kind of goes through that spaghetti strainer. Yeah. And you can say either this is part of our core values or it's not. And we all agreed on it.
And your kids can call you hypocrites or not. So like, I think on like what we were talking before this call, like sobriety is a big one. So, sobriety became one of our core values because of the history around our families of addiction and that. So I think that holds us to a certain standard. Like I love having a nice glass of red wine with Jamie, but I don't have 5.
Yeah.
And, and our sons see that, say, we see you on Friday night for Pizza Friday, have a glass of wine. Absolutely. And I really like that. But sobriety is the thing. I like that night. But and our sons can say, I said, have you ever seen me, intoxicated? No, we haven't. I said, yeah, because sobriety is one of our values. So, but if that was saying those core values and I was getting lit every night, they could say, you're not living by our core values. Yeah, no. So, does it now? Yeah, I don't.
Lit is good now. in case nobody's
I'm way behind the lingo. So,
but I love that because here's the thing though, like.
It could be something happier, like your adventure. Our adventure's our core value. We haven't done anything forever.
Bump along. Yeah.
Totally. And I actually like the thing that we've shared with some families around like the values that we came up with as a family is like, do you know how much more like just better it is for me as a dad? Like if 2 of my kids are bickering, which they're going to, like you have kids, they're going to argue, they're going to fight. You know how much more like powerful and just like better, how much better it feels for me as a dad to be like, hey guys, Smiths love and support one another. Like you guys said that, like you guys helped come up with that value. So it's like, it's also helped me. Like, I don't feel like I get after my kids as much. Cause otherwise I'd just be like, guys, what are you doing? Like, stop fighting all the time. Like, why are you guys always fighting? I would just have to get after them. Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just almost this reminder of like,
yeah, you're holding them to a standard you created together. You're saying,
yeah, you guys were part of it. And they're like, oh yeah, we were a part of it. Or, like,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's a compass. And you can look and say, hey, here's the direction we wanted to go into, and this is how we wanted to get there. And
you guys helped shape it.
Yeah.
I love that quote, like those who help plan the battle don't battle the plan, or they're not as likely to battle the plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so one of the things too that we've, so we haven't even launched our, there's nothing to buy right now from the Campfire Effect. There's no way to make, we don't monetize it at all, but we are building the flagship course. And so we kind of like, and basically the family brand is really the Campfire Effect for families. It's the methodology that I've used with entrepreneurs, and we're just applying it to families. And so we believe that your family brand a brand of a family consists of three things: culture, language, and experiences. And then we kind of break those down. One of the things, though, that we stumbled upon, just for everyone watching, because sometimes we have people watching these and like, man, I want to get started on our family brand, but when are you guys going to launch the course? And I'm like, well, there's things on these calls every week that you can start doing now. You don't have to wait for the course, right? One of the things that we thought was important when we put together our values is first we were going to kind of have like our values are, and then list them off. But because of an experience I had at 19, I went on a mission for my church, and I was sharing with the leader of our mission at that time that I was just really struggling with why my family had struggled so much. Like the heaviness of that just kind of started weighing on me, like a question, like, why has our family struggled so much? Like, why have we had all these challenges? And it just kind of got like depressing and heavy for me. And I asked him, and he said, I don't know. He said, but I think what happens sometimes in a family is something happens where the name of that family kind of loses some of its meaning and its value. And instead of it being like, oh, wow, you're a Smith, it's like, oh, you're a Smith. And it's almost like, oh, you're a Smith. Like we expect you to, right? Like get pregnant in high school. We expect you to drop out of school. We expect you to have drug and alcohol issues. It's like, so he's like, someday someone's going to come along and reestablish and like take a stand for that name and reestablish what it means to be a Smith. And when he said that to me at 19, I was like, that's going to be me. I didn't say a word to him.
Yeah.
I didn't say a word for like probably 10 years to anyone about that. But then when we started shaping our values, I thought like, man, I want that name to be like part of our identity and our brand. And so what we've done with our values is Smiths are, Smiths do. So like for those of you watching, there's no right or wrong way to create values, but that's just been something that's kind of meaningful for us, is like Smiths do hard things. Smiths love and support one another. And so we just wanted to tie the name like as a brand, like as an identity. And I love what you guys are saying, because I never want people to get the feeling from us that, hey, these values need to be this like rigid set of like rules and guidelines that actually cause kids to have to lash out someday. It's exact opposite. It's like, no. Like these values actually create space for each member of the family to be more of who they already are, right? To like,
exactly.
Very much so.
So I actually wanted to talk about that, if you guys are cool with that. Like, I never forget, I walked into a company years ago to help them with their story and their brand. And I walk in and I start, like, we had these series of meetings with mid-level managers, some of the C-level executives, and it was a branding agency up in Utah. And I quickly realized, like, this company has the most amazing culture of any company I've ever walked into. Like, literally, I believe that the people there would like step in front of a car for each other. Like the employees would take a bullet for the founder. Like literally, like I was like, there's so much love in this company and so much acceptance and performance, and they win all kinds of awards, and they're super diverse. Like these people couldn't be more different. And so it just fascinated me. And then what really blew me away, Jim and Jamie, was that there was no stated mission statement for the company. They'd never written a vision statement. They had no stated values. So all of this amazing culture and this high performance was actually like being done without any stated like language of what they stood for. Now, the reason they brought me in was because they thought that that could even upgrade it further. So they wanted that, right? So that's what we were there for. But it just kind of blew me away, because I'd been into companies that had beautiful mission, vision, values, like even like murals on the wall, and the culture was toxic, right? No one wanted to work there.
Yep.
And so this idea, like I started asking them, and this was the first time I really started researching and thinking about this idea of creating and holding space, and this idea of what space means. And like, that's what they actually had in there. So what allowed them to be such an amazing culture without any mission, vision, values is they held space for every member of the company to like just be themselves. Like everyone felt safe there. And so, yeah, would you guys talk about your experience of that, of like how important it is to like have these values, but within that, like that there's space for every individual in the family to be seen, heard, valued, like for who they are?
Yeah. Well, I think something we've done lots of things wrong, but we've been good at is there's a saying, well, Jamie from her Montessori say, you don't say to the child, hey, listen up and follow me. It's follow the child, watch where they're going and let them go deep into that. And Jamie was so instrumental of that. And then we have another friend from our retreats that he had said, look, your job as a parent is to find out what they're passionate about, dump gasoline on it, and set it on fire.
Get out of the way.
And it's so different for each kid. Don't pick it. I'm seeing it now, especially with our 16-year-old, who we went a very alternative route of his education after about age 11, 12. And he's going into things that take most people, I think, till their late 20s, early 30s to figure paths on. But it was stuff, if I had tried to pick it, Chris, there's no way I would have gotten in the way. I didn't see these things. And so we didn't try to script for them. I think that was a really important part of it. And then also we really, as you know, with our whole family board meeting strategy was really about intentional one-on-one time. And spending one-on-one time with kids, especially when you have 4 of them, is so important to take away the Jan Brady, Marsha. And it separates the parts to strengthen the whole. So I don't know if you want to add something to that.
No, I think that's great. Also in holding space, which is something that is actually a term that we use a lot in Waldorf education. Like you hold the space for each person. So it just means bringing that intention again and making sure that you are aware that your family is comprised of, for us, 6 or right now 8 different people. And that each person has their own opportunity, whether it be through one-on-one time, whether it be through meals. I try to hold that space and be intentional in, okay, each meal that there's something that each person likes. Not that I'm making 8 things for the dinner table, but tonight it might be, I know how much you referenced that you used to eat potatoes at your house. So I thought that tonight we could have potatoes with our dinner, or whatever it may be, but just holding that intentionality that each person is special, but also, and having that language and that intentionality, everything from a hug to eye contact, to just making certain that you're present. That's one thing Dr. Shefali too, playful, present, and patient. And I think using those 3 things brings so much space in making sure that each person is seen, each person is validated, and also making sure that it starts with you. So make sure that you have a little bit of space within you to hold space for others, right? And so, whatever self-care may be to you, or, turning off. I know my favorite thing, I look so forward every day to my cup of green tea. And some days it turns into 3 cups because, like yesterday, my first cup got kicked over in the grass. My second cup got a fistful of sand. And my third cup, I would have sold a couple of children if they messed that one up. But each one, I was like, I get to have another one. Yeah. And so it's just one of those things that making sure that it comes from the top down. We talk a lot about the leadership tone and making sure that whatever that is that you're wanting to set, whether it's chaos outside of the home, make sure that your inside space is not chaotic, and let that start with you. And if it starts to get chaotic, say, okay, well, where's my mind? Where's my heart? What space do I need to make?
It's amazing. And you referenced Dr. Shefali. Is she the one that wrote The Conscious Parent or Conscious Parenting?
Yeah, we did a retreat with her in Utah a few years ago too. It was a fun weekend, and
that is such an amazing
bunch of families. That was really fun.
Sweet. Yeah,
that's awesome. So I love that. I love this idea of holding space for you so that you can hold space for your children, and this idea of it was the first time that I really saw wow, space can be created and then held, right? So it's this idea of love creates space, and how we hold it. And one of the things that's super hard for me, and I'm working on, is how do I hold space for my kids without judgment? For them to really be who they are as they are, not judge them. It's hard, right? And so that this idea, and what's interesting though, is because what that company helped me see is you can have the most beautifully written mission, vision, values, but then if you don't hold the space, they're just words, right?
Like you said, it's just a mural on the wall to the side.
Yeah. Or what you said, Jim, earlier, is the other thing that's cool about values, and it's a little bit, I don't want to say it's scary, but it's it's real. You also recognize when the minute you create your values and put them up on a wall, it's whoa, I just signed up for that too. Yeah. As a parent, I just signed up to be the ultimate demonstration of that. And I'm not going to be it perfectly, but it's man, I can't.
It holds you to again, that North Star that you can aim for.
Totally. Yeah. There's days I want to come home and, go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to say, and when you fall off that track, right? And you
totally.
But then you have something to come back to, because you're ooh, this wheel feels a little wobbly, and right where you need to get. It's not like you're over here going, oh, well, maybe I'm just going to turn right now. You're oh, messed that one up, and you get back on course.
Yeah, totally. So I want to be sensitive to you guys' time, because I know we had just half an hour here. Last thing I want to talk about though is, we were talking about this at the beginning of the call, that just there's not a lot of there's not nearly as much content out there in the world for families as there is for entrepreneurship and how to grow a business and how to build a business. And yet this is our most, and the thing that I've observed even in myself is it's actually easier a lot of times for me to be more intentional about the brand and the culture of my business than it is my own home. And I think for a number of reasons. One, recognition, right? Like we do this Facebook Live right now and we already have likes, comments, shares. Like I feel really good about that, right? But I'm not coming home and my kids are being like, hey, Dad, just the way you run your business and like help provide for our family is just amazing, right? Or like, hey, Mom, the way you fold our clothes and like put it in our, it's just inspiring. Like, so from a recognition standpoint and from achievement standpoint, but I ask all of our guests who are entrepreneurs, like, why is it easier for us sometimes as entrepreneurs to be more intentional about the brand and the culture of our business than it is our very own home or our family?
I think, and I mean, it is easier to be good at business than to be good at family. I think for most people, for most entrepreneurs, maybe because of those accolades and recognitions and boosts. Because some days you're just in the trenches, like you said, and am I going to get to drink my third green tea that I've poured?
Wiping butts is not sexy.
Totally. But I also think that's helpful to realize, like, that because I think sometimes we feel bad, like, or guilt or shame. And it's just like, I think it's also almost like it's been refreshing for me to be like, no, it is easier to be better at business and family. And that's okay. It doesn't relieve me of my responsibility over here, but it's like, I sometimes feel like a lot of entrepreneurial families or parents, like they take it like there's something wrong with me because and it's like, no, there's just an opportunity there to be a little more intentional and apply the same things that make you such a successful entrepreneur to apply those, in your own home. But it's challenging.
Yeah, people, there's just not a lot out there. And
I think that somehow people feel like they have less control at home. Like you said, less accolades, less recognition, but also less control because you think, okay, I may have created these little people, but like, I don't know where they're coming from all the time, right?
Totally.
And so they don't come with a book. Whereas your business, which is it's such a weird thing to say, like your business you just pulled out of your head, you know what I mean? But and yet somehow that seems more manageable, more like, okay, well, someone did this before me. Whereas family is so sensitive to your own unit, your spouse, who the children are. Do they have differences? Do they have exceptionalities? What are you dealing with in your family structure? And so it's just a little bit different. They don't come with manuals. And so, and it's not sexy. I know that like on our fanciest days when it's like, when the porch is covered in the stuff and then like, there's like 6 pairs of wet pants from various children, whatever. And I always have that song. I don't know who sings it. I was going to look it up. That glamorous song, GLAMOUR. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Because I'm always like, this shit is fancy. Like this is good as it gets, but it's just not that, you know what I mean? I think that it's easier when you show up at work, like you took a shower, these people are expecting something from you and you can do it because you kind of know what's being expected and you're going to lead, right? Because these people are looking at you to lead. I don't know that people always take that into account with their family thinking this is when I show up, not just, oh, that's when they wake up and I have to like do some things to keep them from complaining at me. You do have to show up. And like you said, bringing that intentionality or your yes or whatever it may be, but knowing that you also have to lead your family. It is different, but it is not sexy. And I think that's why it's harder.
Like we talked about before, I've never heard anyone say, I am going to aim to be the perfect entrepreneur.
True.
Never. I'm going to have the perfect business. But in the marketing, and I don't know if this is the perfect parent,
totally,
the perfect husband, the perfect wife. And it's like we were discussing before, I think that saying perfect family is one of the worst things that's ever happened to family life. We all care about it. We don't feel necessarily equipped. We haven't had any focused learning on family life or how to like what we're doing here. It's very rare you've gotten any training in it at all.
And yet no one likes to say, hey, I suck at this.
Yeah.
Or hey, I need help.
Sensitive. So
it is so super
But there's
sensitive.
there's this pressure because of certain sayings. I want to have the perfect family. Yeah. And it's like that. That right there can de-escalate. I couldn't imagine saying I'm going to be the perfect entrepreneur. Like,
and then you're setting up for failure.
Yeah.
In fact, entrepreneurs, a lot of times it's like almost like a little bit of a badge, like of courage, a badge of honor. This idea of like, I'm going to fail fast. I'm going to launch before ready. Launched is better than done is better than perfect. It's like that same mentality could like benefit a lot of families. It's like, look, let's fail fast. Let's learn what works with our family, what doesn't work. Let's just be intentional about it though. And I was interviewing Richard Lidner, he's the co-founder of Digital Marketer last week. And he's had a line that stuck with me. He's like, yes, he said sometimes my family gets what's left of, or he said a lot of times our families gets what's left of us, not the best of us.
Yeah.
And it's like, sure. Yeah, we pour into these businesses, and it takes this real intention. But here's what I want everyone watching know is like, you really can, like it, and it's not going to be sexy. It's not going to be easy. But you really can, with intention, have the family you want. And it's not going to be a perfect family, but you can design what your family stands for. You can
have a lot of fun and a lot of freedom along the way by creating a little bit of intention.
And you're not, intention, and we say intention, awareness, and just a few simple frameworks.
Yep.
With that, the solution doesn't have to be as complicated as we've made the problem. Like, we've had families come to us, and I'm sure you're, oh my gosh, like, no, forget it. It's just that, and you get a little bit of focus, and a little bit of tweak and a little bit of framework, and all of a sudden, is it 100% better? No, but they're 80% of the way there from where they were. But again, it seems so far away, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Totally. I kind of think too, it's a lot of times what I talk about in the campfire effect, because we really believe that, like, on the business side, that same thing is we believe most businesses can significantly grow, if not double, their revenue by just making a few small tweaks without doing anything new. Take the same amount of relationships, the same amount of customers, the same amount of marketing, like not add anything new, but just a few simple tweaks with a framework and some intentionality, and can dramatically grow. But I often think that sometimes it's like, that seems so simple that it can't be true. It's kind of like Moses with the staff when he's just like, hey, we guys just look at the staff. And they're like, nope, not going to do it. It's too easy. It's like, just look at the staff, right? It's like, it's the same thing where it's just like, it really is just a little bit of an intention with a little bit of framework. And you don't have to have the perfect mission, the perfect mission, the perfect vision, the perfect values, but some guiding principle around this is what it means to be a Smith. And we've all shared in it. And look, we have a commitment to each other and like living this, and like things can get like, from a guy who 10 years ago was separated. We weren't separated working on it. We were separated, gonna get divorced. We had 2 beautiful little boys, and truly got to a place of hopelessness. Like, if you would, like, there was no possibility this could get better. Man, fast forward just 10 years later, like, my wife's my best friend. Like, we are happy. Like, we struggle, we have challenges, but we're happy, and we have 5 kids now. And it's just like, look, it's possible for every family to be more connected and more happy. Like, it just really is. And so I just really appreciate you guys coming on. For those of you who, some of people are just still joining us live, like, you please go back and watch this, start a watch party. We've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about the power of family values, how to create them, how to use them as a kind of a guidepost and a filter. We've talked about the power of creating space for children to really, be seen. Really talked about the power of like one-on-one individual time. And I just want to for me, the biggest thing that I took away from this is being willing to say yes more from the very beginning thing that Jamie said, and just re-emphasizing, we have an intention to do a kid date, one-on-one kid dates every month, once a month. And then we do one-on-one weekly check-ins every Sunday. And there's Sundays we don't, but it just reminds me of just the power. Cause I'm reminded every time we do one-on-one kid dates of like, wow, my kids talk to me about things in a one-on-one setting that they just don't in front of the whole family.
They wouldn't otherwise.
2-on-1.
Yep.
It's just the power of one-on-one is just, and obviously you guys have taken that to a completely different level with, the board meetings. So I guess Jim and Jamie, in closing here, I want to know one thing. If you guys had to say, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I haven't prepped you with this. I want both of you to say, I want you both to come up with your own answer. What's the one thing that your family stands for more than anything? Like, if you took all the culmination of your values and like your beliefs, and like, if you had to say the one thing we stand for more than anything, what's present for you? What comes up?
I think we're definitely servers. I mean, that's the first thing that always comes to me. I know that everyone in our family definitely has a servant's heart, and it shows up in different ways with everybody. But I do think that that we like to bring value and contribute. Cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna say we really try to support each other's gifts and talents.
So maybe like individuality.
We have each other's back. Yeah, we really celebrate, and
I love that.
Building the boat, and man, Leland aced his science test with no problem, and Maggie's so fun. Like, with our retreats and our stuff, we really try to support each other's gifts and talents.
I love that.
And that attracts other kids in the neighborhood to us, because we kind of have that vibe at our house.
I think another word would be abundant, because we seem to multiply pets, plants, children. We're a great
Awesome.
multiplier.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay, well, you guys are amazing. So, one, I want our community to be exposed to you. Like, how could we learn about 18 Summers and the board meetings and your work and what you're up to in your retreats?
So our website's 18summers.com. All of our social media links for Twitter to Insta. We're not really active on Twitter, but Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook community, that kind of stuff is all on our website.
You can get the book, The Family Board Meeting, on Amazon.
That's right.
Family Board Meeting on Amazon.
The Family Board Meeting, yeah.
Must read for families. It's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
So,
yeah,
that's a good starting point.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Okay, last question, because we've talked so much about one-on-one time. We have some ideas on but I'd love for you to share, because I've shared a lot of ours. That might be overwhelming. That might seem like, wow, I've got 3 kids, 4 kids. Like, man, how do I do one-on-one time? Or even I got 2 kids and I work full of. What's something a family could do to get started with that isn't overwhelming at all? It's just simple.
I would say our mealtime challenge is something everyone can do. Try to have dinner at a set time every night. Turn off your electronics for an hour and
30
ask
minutes, whatever 30 you can minutes, do, right?
And ask the question, what was your best part of the day and what was your weirdest part of the day? Anyone can do that right from home. And the conversations and the awareness that'll come of just that simple rhythm, that'll start getting, the beating of the drum to get you in rhythm. The mealtime challenge is, we try to get to this big grandiose changes. Start with that one small thing of consistency, distractions out of the way, and asking a question that will change every day. And that's been big for our family. And that's a simple thing you can do right away.
I love that.
So great that you say that, because I was actually thinking, Chris, when I'm trying to remember what we were talking about, but it popped in my head with the 2 sweet foster babies that we have right now. They came from a situation that there was no structure and no quality time. There's just lots of things that come along with that. And our family does. I mean, that's one thing that dinner time challenge that Jim references. We come to the table, we light a candle, we do our blessing, which involves singing and all the things. And these children, what was so beautiful is like the entire day could be like total chaos, but man, they rub the hands, they sing the song, and then they're like, the candle, and then we go into best and weirdest. And I'm telling you, these toddlers that we have, like for us, I think that, I don't want to say I took it for granted, because I know that we teach these things, but it's one of those things when I see it in such an obvious thing. Like, you want to talk about doing one thing, coming to a meal, coming to a table with that intentionality. And like you said, it's actually Joey Coleman's family that gave us that idea for best and weirdest. It's so awesome, and to go from like total chaos all day. I know that when we do the blessing and light the candle, those 2 little babies who have never had this before, like that's their grounding thing. And I think, wow, even if we do nothing else, even if you do nothing else in your home, bringing intentionality, starting with one thing to bring intentionality to can change the
day. And like you said, Jim, is like, and what you're talking to Jamie is like that rhythm of just doing that. Then it's like, oh, we, 4 or 5 nights a week, more on nights that we're now doing a meal together.
Yeah.
If we can do that, we could probably do a one-on-one kid date once a month.
Exactly. Right? Then you can build off the stronger core. You start with a small core and you can build off of it.
Love it.
Whatever you can.
Small incremental growth.
Welcome, Brian, Elizabeth, Homer, Philip. Philip McCartney said, take the mic off Jim. What's up, Philip?
Tell him he's not invited down next week.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to, so you guys have actually heard us on the Connection series. I probably mentioned 2 or 3 times best, worst, weirdest. I got the weirdest from Jim and Jamie on an MMT call. We were doing best part of your day, worst part of your day. What'd you do to help someone today?
Yeah.
And then what did you do to help someone today was cool, but I just wanted to change it up. And so now we do best, worst, weirdest, because Jim and Jamie shared that and they got it from Joey. And then we changed it up. Like last night, my wife said, hey, everyone's going to go around and say something that you love about the person to the right of you.
Which is sweet. Yeah.
So that's what we did last night. Right. And so, but it's just this intention. I love the best, worst, weirdest. And Jim and Jimmy, you're probably familiar with this, but I was shocked like about a month ago in just preparing for shooting the family brand course. We were just doing a bunch of research on meals and things like that. There's this crazy research out of Stanford it's mind blowing that says that a family that eats 6, what was the 2 stats? It says they measured children and families that eat 3 meals or less. 3 or less meals together a week versus families that ate 6 or more meals together a week. And they tracked those children, and like the statistics around teenage pregnancy, teenage drug use.
Doesn't surprise me
just
at
in
all.
that one thing around meals, just meals. Like,
Yeah.
it's just profound. Like, and that's just one thing that's simple that you can.
This is where we talk about what we found, if anything, Chris, and you'll see as you and your wife dig deeper into the education on this, the solutions are not going to be as complicated as we've made the problem. Yeah. Like the breaking of bread as a family is a couple thousand years old. And then, but forget that. Let's get on to the iPhone and do this and that. But if we get back to certain, core practices, I think that'll get you all the way there. No, 75, 80% of the way there. I think it will. And so if those stats are showing from a college like that, there's the proof right there.
Okay. Well, the problem with these interviews is I could literally go on for hours, especially with, amazing people like Jim and Jamie who've been at this for so long and so amazing at what you do. So check them out. 18 Summers Family Board Meetings book on Amazon. Jim and Jamie, thank you guys so much for coming on the Connection series. And
thanks for having us.
Yeah. So here's the thing. To all of you watching, like, you guys can do it. You can plant your family's flag. Like, and that's kind of that's a tagline for Family Brand, is like, you plant your family's flag, right? Like, you decide. And thank you guys for being on. If you guys want to follow more of these interviews, go to our Facebook page and like Family Brand. You can see Philip is actually coming on this week.
Don't do that. Don't do that, Chris.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then if you guys go on Facebook and search Family Brand Community, we have our Facebook group, and we just created a free course that we'd love to share with all families. So thanks, Jim and Jamie.
Thanks for having us, Chris. Great to see you. Yeah.